You are listening to the Empowered Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monica Froese, a mom of two and your secret weapon to creating a six-figure digital product business. I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women make $100,000 a year. That's right, $100 million towards financial independence for women. As an online business expert, I am teaching you everything I know right here week after week, so you can join us on the journey to $100 million. Sound good? Then let's jump in. Welcome to today's show. I have such a treat for you. We're going to be talking to my friend Chelsea Brennan from Smart Money Mamas. Chelsea and I met, about a year and a half ago at FinCon, which is a conference for financial bloggers. And I just loved her from the moment I met her and got to talk to her. She is truly a genius when it comes to helping moms in particular manage their money better, but even more than that, address the primary issue that most people have around money, which is money mindset issues. And we just had so much fun talking. So I want to tell you a little bit about who Chelsea is before we jump on in. So Chelsea is the founder of Smart Money Mamas and its monthly membership community, the Motivated Mama Society. An ex-hedge fund manager turned financial educator, Chelsea is dedicated to changing the way we talk about money, helping moms connect with all aspects of their money in a way that lets them overcome emotional blocks, identify what they most want, and create the healthy money habits that help them achieve their biggest goals, all while modeling positive money relationships for the next generation. Chelsea lives in Connecticut with her husband, a rock star stay-at-home dad, and two young and energetic boys. I'm so excited that she's here today, so let's dive right in and meet Chelsea. Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how your entrepreneur journey started?
Absolutely, Monica. I'm so excited to be here. So anyone who's listening, my name's Chelsea. I'm the founder of Smart Money Mamas. And my entrepreneurship journey started when I was just about to have my second child. I always knew that my old job, I was a hedge fund manager, would not be my forever job. It was just not something that was fulfilling in the way that I wanted to, that had the bigger impact on the world. And so I had a very stressful second pregnancy, and my job was just a stressful place to be. And at 32 weeks, it looked like we were going to deliver a preemie. Turned out not. What happened. He stayed in, thank goodness. But in the hospital bed, I couldn't imagine continuing to work, continuing to put myself under this much stress, especially with a new baby. I had people from work still sending me emails, right? I'm in the hospital, I'm still getting emails. And so I looked at my husband. He and I had been planning for financial independence for several years. And so we weren't quite there yet. But we had a cushion, we had a runway. And I had already had this hobby blog for 6 or 7 months. It had never made a penny, but it existed. And I just looked at him and I was like, I want to quit. Like, what do we think about this? And so he and I sat together in the hospital. We ran the numbers and we said like, okay, he's a stay-at-home dad. So everything is a little bit extra scary when we're going to quit your job. But we decided to go for it. And so I left my job right before my second child was born. And we turned our hobby blog into a full-time business.
I have so many questions. Okay. So your husband was a stay-at-home dad while you were deciding to quit your job.
Yes. So he quit his job about a month before our first was born. He always wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. He's great at it. I'm not built to be a stay-at-home parent. And so
me neither.
And so it kind of worked out really well. But yeah, when we were deciding whether or not to go from really, really good income to zero, he was a stay-at-home dad and was planning on continuing to stay a stay-at-home dad.
So Smart Money Mamas was the blog when you quit. Okay, so that was already in existence, but it wasn't making you like a full-time income when you had the inkling that you wanted to.
So it was the same blog under a different name. We rebranded later, but it had never made a penny, Monica. And so for my old job, we had very strict rules about what we could do for outside sources of income, which is basically that we couldn't. And so I was allowed to have it as a hobby, but I could not make any money from it. So we'd had the blog. It had been in existence for about 7 months, but it had never made a penny.
Okay. So when you're deciding to quit, so I feel like we have similar stories, though different, because my husband still has a corporate job. Mm-hmm. And I will say building a business with the stability of a corporate paycheck and benefits, I mean, full disclosure there, because I completely recognize the differences in doing it. So you must have been saving. How long did the plan take you to execute? You knew you wanted to quit to when you actually did.
Okay, so this is a little bit complicated, right? Because
Okay.
I always knew I didn't want to have this job. And so financial independence is the idea of saving, as you know, enough money so that you don't have to work again. And so we were about 6 years away from that. We would have been able to completely retired by the time I was 35. At this point, I'm 28, almost 29. And so we had been saving for years. I always knew I didn't want to be in this career forever, and I made really good money. So we always saved at least 50% of our income, usually 70% of our income. So when we decided to make this pivot, in a lot of ways, it seemed really fast. So his family, my parents, like were a little bit flabbergasted. Like I kind of hit my breaking point and quit a day later. Like we had this conversation, we ran through the spreadsheets, but we had been saving for this for years, right? Like we had this cushion that we built. And sometimes you get people in my community who have the same question, right? Of like, I want to quit my job. Like, can I just jump ship? And no, you want to make sure your family is safe, right? So for us, we were at what I call coast level retirement. So if we don't save another penny for retirement ever, by the time I'm like 45, 46, we can retire. That money is already set. It's investing, it's doing its job. Cash, we had 2 years of financial runway. So even though I didn't have the support, like my husband didn't have a job, we had money in the bank. So if the business made nothing for 2 years, we would have been fine. And so what we said was, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of time off with the baby and George and try to health recover. And then we're going to give us a year. And if at the end of the year, we're not seeing signs that this is going to work, we'll discuss either me going back into finance. My husband, part of him being a stay-at-home dad was I always wanted to make sure if something happened to me or something happened to us, that he would be financially secure. And so he has his captain's license. So he used to captain yachts. He has his master's in construction engineering. And so he could go back to work if he needed to go back to work. And so we kind of had these safety nets laid out, even though it looked like I said I wanted to quit and quit the next day. Like that's not what happened.
Pretty much what I did. So, I mean, I founded my website on the premise that women's right to work. I had a lot of people in my life that thought women should just be stay-at-home moms. I wanted nothing to do with it, but I've always been a spender. And my husband, who pitched himself in the dating years as a saver, is anything but a saver. My dad always said I was going to be in trouble if I got with someone who was a spender like me. Come to find out, he's a worse spender than me. He'll admit it now, finally. And so we had no financial cushion whatsoever. So my attitude in life has always been...
But he still had a job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what actually happened, the reason I ended up quitting was because he got a promotion out of nowhere. It was one of those like cosmic things because I was really, really itching to invest more into my website. And the bump he got from his promotion covered both of our corporate paychecks. And it was really hard for me not to be contributing for a few months because like, that's just not my MO whatsoever. But what's interesting, and I'm very curious about it. So always been a spender, never been a saver. I'm working on that. As I make more money, I'm starting to see the wisdom of investing. Mine's a money relationship issue. My dad is like, my mom always said, has the first dollar he ever made. We were guilted as kids for spending money. So I think my spending habits came out of like a little bit of a rebellion. But what drives me, we never had financial security in the sense of like savings. So, I mean, I think I'm a driven person anyways, but I know like I don't really have room for failure. And that really drove me in the early years for the business. So when you have a nice cushion, what drives you? Because you've been doing this for how long now?
A little over 3 years.
Okay. Obviously, you're making money before your 2 years ran out.
Yeah.
Right? But what really motivated you knowing that you had a cushion to succeed in the business?
Well, I knew the cushion wouldn't last forever. We talk about money mindset, right? We could get into this for an entire episode, but I'm a major security seeker. And so I need a big cushion. And so just seeing those dollars go down in the bank month to month when we first started, that was enough for me to be like, oh my gosh, we have to fix this, almost to a negative side, right? Like the panic of not having a paycheck coming in was severe. But I also, and everybody has money stories from their childhood that negatively impact them that they have to heal. One of mine is wealth equals worthiness. And so I had a father who idolized people with wealth. He didn't manage money well himself, but like he passed that on very significantly. And so something we had to work through and that I didn't fully realize until I left my job was how deep seated that was for me. And so as soon as that paycheck went away and that status went away of like having a really good job, I had a lot of fear around what this meant about how my husband was feeling about me, especially because we got married and we had kids under the expectation that I was going to continue to make this high money at my hedge fund job and he was going to be able to be a stay-at-home dad. And so now we're talking about, What are our safety nets? Could he go back to work if he needed to? And that seemed to, in some ways, attack my own sense of self-worth of like, if he has to go back to work, I have failed. And so there was a lot of working that out between the two of us and for myself, because what was starting to happen really early on in the business is I was looking for the fastest ways to earn money. I never stopped my work schedule. So part of the reason that we did this was for my health and mental health to leave. I was still working 90-hour weeks. I went from zero to like $6,000, $7,000 a month in freelance writing income in 4 or 5 months because I took every client. We made this plan saying that I was going to take a couple months of maternity leave after I quit. I never did that. Like I signed my first freelance client, like I was still in the hospital. And so my drive was all tied to that head trash, for lack of a better word. And over time, I've balanced it out and I now have a healthier money relationship. But that was always enough motivation for me, that like drive to have a sense of security.
All right. So let's talk about money mindset then, because Smart Money Mamas, mainly about money mindset. Do you talk about both for your personal finances and business finances? Or is it mainly for personal finances?
So I'm a huge believer that it's all tied together. We talk a lot about money mindset at Smart Money Mamas, but we actually talk about all areas of finance. We, of course, talk about investing because that's my background, and we talk about getting out of debt. But for me, I actually think our ability to become our best version of ourselves is very intricately tied to our relationship with money and our ability to build wealth, right? I think that it's really, really negative when we see people in the self-improvement space that are just like, pursue your passion, quit jobs and relationships that don't serve you. Like they spew all this stuff that sounds really good. But if you're a person who doesn't have financial security, who's like wondering where the next rent check, you're listening and you're like, yeah, what the hell? Like, I'm not going to quit my job. Like, I have kids to feed. And so we talk a lot about money mindset and fixing those old stories. But we also talk about what we call the money hierarchy of needs, which is built off Maslow's, of like how each stage of Maslow's and actually getting to self-development and self-actualization is different levels of wealth. And that wealth doesn't necessarily buy you happiness. It doesn't necessarily make you a better person, but it does give you the freedom and opportunity to pursue and explore those things. And we can't really talk about sense of self-worth and things like that if you're at the bottom of that pyramid. If you're constantly worried about how you're going to pay for the groceries, how you're going to pay for the rent, or if some big emergency is going to wipe you out, that upper stuff that we all want, right? We all want the fulfilled life. We all want to pursue our passions. We all want to build businesses that make good money. We need to secure our financial base first. And that's part mindset and part just getting money in the bank and making sure you feel safe.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much money mindset and things that happen in your childhood impact. Oh, I didn't realize it, to be honest.
Yeah.
We always made fun of my dad for his preoccupation with money, and he still has quite the preoccupation with money, but I never really realized it till I started making what I would call above average money.
Yeah.
What I realized, because money was such a negative thing in my childhood, I absolutely believed that money could buy happiness. And that is not true. I tell my husband all the time, money makes our life so much easier. No doubt about that. But 100%, it does not buy happiness. In a lot of ways, it can make you more stressed. It can ruin relationships. I do not believe that it buys happiness at all, but it does make life easier, I think.
It does make life easier. And I do think that the negative impacts are also all about mindset and negative mindset, right? And so there's an entrepreneur that I'm good friends with that has reached a certain point in her business and she doesn't want to make it bigger. She's above average income already, but she doesn't want to make it any bigger because of this fear that then everything will fall apart. And she's like, anyone I know who has a bigger business than me, their relationship is a mess, their friendships are a mess, and I just don't want this. I just don't want this in my life. And she and I have had to have a lot of conversations about, you have this internalized view that money is evil and that money causes these situations. And you're not seeing all the other reasons that these people that you're pointing to have issues that have nothing to do with the amount their business makes. It has to do with their own internal sense of wealth, their own internal, investment, their own investment in their own relationships and things like that. And that you can't ascribe like, money brings out some of the negative stories. And I think one of the things that people struggle with is they look and they do say that it hurts relationships, right? But when you have more money, all the other things that you used to fight about, making the bills and getting the house clean, because now you hire a house cleaner, all of that stuff falls away. And all that's left in your relationships are the actual deep issues that now you've got to look at because you don't have the money stuff to worry about. And that's not the money's fault. That's the fact that we didn't fix the root cause of the relationship in the first place.
Gosh, you could be a therapist, I think. I have lots of thoughts. And I mean, there are situations that happened in my family that I'm not ready to talk about in a public forum at this point. But oh gosh, you just brought up so many good points. Because I think now that you said that, I'm thinking to myself, right, that's actually a really good point. Because, here's a very practical example. My cat, who's like attached to me 24/7, I love her to death, but she kind of drives me nuts. Like she's constantly nipping at me. It's like, oh my gosh, can you just go away? Well, she was sick the other day. So I've always been a cat lady. And I remember when I got with my husband, who wasn't an animal person growing up, one of the first things I told him was, if my cat will cost thousands of dollars to fix, I will fix it. So don't this will never be a topic of discussion. I will not argue about it. I don't care if it goes on a credit card. Like I was very sensitive to it because I had family members that didn't respect how much I loved my animals in the past. So I was really clear about it. And I remember being very stressed taking our animals to the vet when we had no money. It was just like an unexpected expense. We had no cushion. I knew something was off with her. I took her to the vet with COVID era. She goes in, so I don't get to go in with her, and they call you in the car and let you know what's going on. And I've gone to this vet since I was 8 years old. So I knew that very well. And she was nervous because she had to give me some bad news monetarily. And I remember thinking like, oh no, that doesn't even sound like a high number to me anymore. And it was just like, wow, it was kind of a total just mind blown situation of how much like internally I felt so different in a situation that I've been in so many times in my life, to the point where like I made it a stipulation in my relationship of like, never tell me I can't spend money on my cats,
Yeah.
It's almost like you don't see it coming. The way you teach, it sounds like you spend a lot of time helping people actually understand this. It's not just like that accidentally happened to me in a lot of ways, like things I kind of knew because I'm a pretty self-aware person, but then you actually make us think about it and heal it. Essentially, that seems to be what you're doing.
Yeah. So when we talk about, our core product is our membership. We have the Motivated Mama Society. And one of the parts of that is foundations. It's broken into 5 courses. And the first being Thriving Mindset. And it brings you back through your money history and helps you identify what's going on, what's holding you back. And then how do we actually heal it and move forward? In my opinion, there are way too many people out there who are like, just create a good money mantra and like repeat it every day. And like, no. Like you're not actually getting to the root of the problem. And like what ends up happening is, first of all, there's a ton of spiritual bypassing that goes into that, right? Like there's this sense of like, if you just say, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to be a millionaire, and then you will become a millionaire. And if it's not, you just don't believe it enough. And it's like, okay, well, there's all kinds of systemic like issues there. And you're laughing, but like, this is like actually things that I see people say.
I know. Because it sounds crazy to me.
It does sound crazy. And it is, because there's so many systemic issues. There's so many things that people have trauma around money. And like, we come back to money is tied to our basic sense of safety in our society, right? Your ability to have a roof over your head, your ability to have food in your belly. And some of us have real fight or flight fears around money because we faced that trauma, that deprivation before. And so now you have to heal that first before we can teach budgeting systems. So many women that come into our membership have said to me, like, I have bought every budgeting course. I have bought the books. I have downloaded the apps and I can't make it work. Budgeting itself is easy. It's this other piece that you have to heal. You said you were not ready to talk about it publicly. Part of the reason that we went with a membership is because we needed a safe space for people as they worked this stuff out to talk about it. And so we have on a very regular basis, people posting and being like, oh my God, like I just realized this thing that has been burdening me for my entire life that I never even realized it. And so it almost sometimes feels a lot like therapy, especially early on. And then once people get through that first section, it all gets easier, but you've got to be willing to do that work up front.
It reminds me of like weight loss stuff or running even, they say it's 90% mental and 10%. Same thing with money. And I honestly, before I started the business, I never would have believed you about any of this. You hit a really interesting point about the membership. I have a lot of questions about the membership, but the membership, allowing people a safe space, because you're right. I think the thing about talking about it publicly is my family members, it maybe gave me negative opinions about money or negative feelings. And I'm not looking to like publicly put them on notice or anything, but it's nice to know that there's somewhere. It reminds me when I like a pregnancy infertility group, like women don't want to go out there and be talking necessarily about that. But when you're working with other women who are going through the same thing, it's a sense of community. It makes you feel safe. So let's talk actually about the membership, because the membership's a digital product.
Yes.
And that's what we talk about here. So this fits very well. Okay. So it's called
Motivated Mama Society.
Okay. And how much is it?
$29 a month.
Wow. So that's not bad at all. And what do they get with that?
Well, my business coach argues is too much.
I'm sure that's the case.
Part of the difficult part for me of teaching about money is that I think this information needs to be available. And so sometimes the people who need it the most can't afford it. And so we set a $29 price of like, listen, this is fair. This is enough that you have skin in the game. This is enough that I can make a living. But at the same time, it's affordable for people who need it to be affordable. And so what we have is our foundations course at that 5 pieces that is very in-depth. And so we tell people when you join, come in and focus on foundations. Do that first. And it's probably going to take you a couple of months to work through it the way you're supposed to work through it. It's a very in-depth course. But we also we do a monthly live masterclass with either me or an outside expert. We do a monthly live Q&A. And every other month we do a book club. And so we pick a book that's either about personal finance, career and business, or self-development and motherhood, because I am very holistic in how we look at money. And especially for a lot of people in our community, they come to the table to do this work and learn about money because they want to raise kids. And they've realized that they can't pass on healthy lessons if they haven't internalized them. And so they're doing that work for themselves. And so those are the main things that we do in the society. And then there's a Facebook group that has kind of daily posts and accountability and support for people who need it.
Okay. So we know that the community aspect is one really great reason to have the membership. But I also know, having been in the online world long enough, that memberships bring what we like to call recurring revenue to our business. Mm-hmm. So I have a couple questions behind this. First of all, before the membership, because the membership's relatively new. You've only launched it once, but it's on Evergreen, which I also have questions about. So you've launched it once, so it's relatively new. So prior to launching the membership, how were you making money in the business?
So we had digital products. Our biggest digital product is our family emergency binder, which is a printable, fillable PDF that's all about filling the gaps between like what a life insurance policy and a will would cover and what your family would actually need in an emergency situation, how to pay the cable bill, who's your kid's doctor, all of that kind of stuff, as well as, usually there's only one person in the house that manages the money most of the time. Hopefully you and your partner talk about it, but we divide and conquer. That's why we are in relationships, right? And so somebody's actively in it. And so there's sections in there of laying out your investment plan, who to call if you need help investing life insurance money, things like that. And so that was our main big product. And then we ran an annual summit every October called Mamas Talk Money, which is where really the idea of the membership was born out of.
Okay. So when you chose the membership, was recurring revenue. So when I say recurring revenue, for anyone who doesn't know, it's when someone's paying you month after month. It gives you a predictable baseline in your business. And when you have, I always say, when your expenses are fixed, which that happens, expenses in your business happen regardless if you're bringing in money. Your software subscriptions, you're paying other companies on a monthly basis. And so those expenses are there for your employees, your contractors. It's fixed. But if you enter every month with $0, that's an issue. So was one of the considerations going to a membership for that recurring revenue?
Absolutely. It was a piece of it. I think for me, I love live video. I love live teaching. I love doing the ongoing support. So when we talk about the summit, I'd be live for 2-3 hours a night answering questions. And that's the stuff that I love to do. But that's obviously not profitable, right? When you're just like live on Facebook, whatever. And so we had to have a way that people who wanted that regular support and that I wanted to do the work that I love to do compensated accordingly. And so recurring revenue made the most sense from that perspective.
And it motivates you to show up too. I mean, because at some point showing up for free, everyone gets worn out.
Absolutely.
I agree. Like we just did a free challenge leading into our big product. It was like doing a summit. Like it was so enjoyable. But the reality is that, I've done this long enough to know that it was only going to remain enjoyable for so long, because when you're working your butt off and there's no return in it, like there has to be like that give take. And I always tell people it's all about economics, and you're not in business if you're not making money. There's 2 things I want to talk about. So you launched it once and now it's on Evergreen. So I have a lot of newbie listeners. So explain, launching means there's like an open and closed cart. So there's a dedicated push towards getting people in the membership. So it's usually like a 3 to 7 day thing. All your emails are going out about it. You probably have some ads behind it. It's a big push for it. And then when something's on Evergreen, it just means you can enroll at any time, but oftentimes you have to produce some sort of urgency to get people to want to enroll. So explain how you launched once and then decided to put it on Evergreen, or like, how did that work out and how is it working out? How are you getting people in there every month?
So we decided to go Evergreen for a number of reasons, one of which is personal, right? Launching is exhausting. It feels like I or my kids get sick every time we go to launch something. Like it's just a little bit of a hot mess. But the bigger reason for me is that when people are ready to work on their money, They don't find you and go like, oh, good, she launches again in 6 months. Like, let me come back later. They go and find somebody who will answer their questions in that moment. And so, especially because this is an emotional journey for a lot of people, I needed to be there when they were ready. The way we handle it is we have a whole nurture system funnel that goes when people join our list. And every month they are pitched the society in like 1 day flash sales, like once a month. We work through different bonuses every month. And so as much as we don't have a launch, the system is already sending people through these like little sales every single month. Also, we get people through referrals. People invite their friends. And then we just get people who find us through the podcast and things like that. We launched, like you said, for the first time in January. And so far in February, we've been adding like 1 or 2 people a day, which is fantastic. It's worked well for us so far. It's still really early to tell, but I think a lot of it is just that personally, I think launches work really well for B2B, because we all understand how it works and we're all ready for it. I think generally B2C, you're looking for an answer in that moment. You're not like waiting for somebody else to come in and join. And so we decided to keep it evergreen.
And launch too can also give you that initial momentum. Imagine like that first person coming into the membership and then the lone soldier in there. You know, the launch gives you like that start, that entry point where you have like a bunch of students and then you can like kick it off.
Well, and I think that that's something to keep in mind too, right? And so like I've been in business for over 3 years. We have an audience. And so we did a beta launch last summer, which is like we opened for like 3 days and we told them we'd take up to 70 people and we took 80. And so that we had, even when we did our initial launch the first week of January, there was already a base of people in there. We'd worked out the kinks. We kind of knew what we were getting. We got a big bulk of people in January. And we did a lot of really specific things about helping a group of people all come in at once. When we're adding only 1 or 2 people a day, it's really easy for me to send them a note, to send them a video, to make sure that they're being onboarded properly. It's harder when there's 300 people joining. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how we've balanced it. But yeah, the launch, you can't have people join to an empty group. It's just really disorienting for people.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to circle back to mindset real quick. This is like the last major topic I want to talk about because I find I run into it all the time and I'm not necessarily immune to it, though I've become more immune to it the longer I've been in business, which is women struggle with selling, i.e. asking for money. And I have come to the conclusion, because I've worked with women now for 5 years, in the topic of you can't be in business if you're not asking for money. It seems to be a very deep-rooted issue that women, as little girls, were trained to be the givers. Mm-hmm. We're trained to take care of people. So if you think about that, we're constantly trained to give ourselves for free. We should be martyrs for our children, martyrs for our husbands, martyrs for everyone. So then you start an online business and you want to share. In the digital product world, you're sharing your knowledge and your skills with the world. And really, in my opinion, the blogging model was really founded, the modern blogging model, I will say, really got kind of twisted into this excuse for women to give everything away for free. That's why, like, I'm so big on digital products, because I'm like, no, like, you should pay me for my knowledge. Like, I want to help you. I have something to help you. I want to give you a low barrier to entry. You know, that's what product ladders are. So there's different levels you can buy with us. So, you know, I'm not trying to freeze people out of it, but still, I personally don't have any shame asking for money. That's one mindset thing I've worked through. Lots of my students, especially new ones, this is an issue. So give us your therapy advice here.
So I think you hit the nail on the head with we're trained to be givers and we're not good at standing up and owning our worth because we've never had to practice it, right? We've never been told to. And in fact, when you do, especially as a young girl, you get told that you're bossy and that you're too loud and that all the different things. And so unlearning that is really, really difficult. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind when you're new is that you do not have to sell like a man. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be in people's face. You don't have to do the like crazy sales tactics that make everybody cringe, right? You can find your own way to sell. But one of the things is that you have to be in business, right? This is what you're doing. And think about the impact anything you're selling has on someone's life. Are you helping them? Whether you're helping them save money, whether you're helping them make their lives easier, whether you're helping them grow their own business, there's an actual value there. If you give it away for free, the likelihood that they actually go and get that value is less than if you charge them for it. Every piece of like research on sales and whatever, when we don't pay for things, we think it's worthless.
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
We don't value it.
We don't value it at all. And so you have to be willing to sell and to be willing to own your power and your voice in the space. The biggest thing is practice. You just have to do it. And I wish there was an easier way. I wish there was a hack. I do think there's a lot to be done around your personal finance money mindset. I think a lot of the similar things will come up. If you are a person who has internalized that money is evil, if you have a person who has internalized that money just causes arguments, you don't want money coming into your life. Like whether or not you like would say, Chelsea, that's ridiculous. Of course I want money coming into my life. A big part of your brain doesn't. A big part of your subconscious brain is afraid of it. And so one of the things we talk to entrepreneurs all the time about is like, you've got to take care of your own home finances before you can thrive in your business finances. And some people will disagree. Some people will tell you like, I can just make my business make more money and I can just keep outrunning this for the rest of my life. And it's like, yeah, except that's a lot more stress and it's probably going to make your business run less efficiently. And so figuring out, you might not be afraid of selling, you might be afraid of some part of the money. And so we talk about root money fears, right? And so money being evil is a big one. Responsibility is a big one. Someone else should just come take care of this for me. And security and like lack of security and not wanting to, if I'm out selling and if I'm out pushing, it means that money's controlling my life. And I don't want to be a person who money controls my life. We all have these little things. And so going to figure out what your root fears are on a general basis will make selling easier and help you communicate a little bit better and not feel like you're selling against your will, right? Because people can tell when you're like selling, but you don't want to be selling and then they don't want to buy from you.
I have a ton of people who have amazing digital products that have gone through my courses, and you go to their site and you can't find them. They're buried. And when I ask questions about it, it's actually very common that students come to me and say, nobody bought my XYZ. And I will go to their site and be like, how do I buy it? They're hiding it. And it's like, well, I can't even find it. How do you expect me to buy it? You're expecting me to do the legwork to find it. When in reality, we all know how sales work. You have to get in front of me. You have to be, all the things that we see every day. If you're not putting it in front of my eyes more than once, like I'm not going to your site to seek it out. That happens a lot.
Think about how much you value the work that you do, right? Like how important you think it is, why you want to share it with the world, why you want to talk about it all the time, your passion and commitment to it. The people who need your product want help with that thing, right? That they're already struggling. And so if you are not willing to put it in front of them, they will go find someone else who will, right?
Yes.
And you have to tell yourself, imagine your ideal customer, that person that you love and you want to help, going and finding somebody else who cares less than you, right? That they're actually in it for all the reasons that you think are not right or that you think isn't as good of a system as you have or whatever. They're going to go spend that money. They're just not going to do it with you. And if you want to have the biggest impact on their lives, you want to help them make the transformation that you're creating. You have to be willing to put it in front of them.
Okay, so comparing it to the fact that you're right. If someone's truly looking, because a digital product is simply a solution to someone's problem. That's what a digital product is. If someone's looking for the solution and you don't want to be the one to offer it to them, it's not like they're not going to go spend the money elsewhere. There are very slimy marketing tactics out there that we get bombarded with. Don't be a slime ball when you're selling. Don't do unethical things. But the reality is that the selling in and of itself is not bad. And if someone is coming to you to solve their problem and you're unwilling to do it and put your thing in front of them, they're going to go spend the money elsewhere. It's not like you're taking something that they're unwilling to spend, which I think a lot of women confuse that. A lot of women I work with confuse that and think that they're going to make someone spend money that they can't afford. One of my mentors always says, stay out of other people's wallets, because it's really disempowering to tell someone how to spend their money. It's not your job to tell someone how to spend their money. Your job is to offer your solution and your gifts to the world.
So this is very funny. So I'm not going to name names because it can cause a thing. But like there is a big person in the personal finance space, everyone who knows, right? This guy, I could have 3 years ago said like, there's already this person that everybody, like it's the number one person everybody goes to. And so why would I bother, right? I'll write it. And if people need what I do, then they'll find me, right? And I could not market. But what I know to happen is that they go to this person who tells them how they're allowed to spend their money and not allowed to spend their money, who is very deprivation focused and shame-based. And not only does it not help a lot of people, there's people it works for, but for most people it does not work. It damages their long-term money story, right? Because now they've had this person in their face, sometimes yelling at them to do things a certain way. And now they think it's them, right? It's like, I just don't have enough willpower. I'm just not good at money. And now they can't even hear my message because they've had this thing shoved down their throat. We have people that come into our community who have been in his courses and his things. And the healing that has to take place in that first mindset course, it's amazing. And so while there are other really good people out there who offer the things that you do, and like not everybody is, we don't want to make competition this big, scary thing. There are times when like, even if you're looking at somebody who is the 500-pound gorilla in the room in your industry, there are massive benefits for you going and marketing alongside and like figuring out how to take your piece of the pie, because there are people who can't hear that person's message. It doesn't work for them, but you can help those people.
I'm one of those people that know who you're talking about. And also, I never pieced this together. You just actually pieced it together for me. His method never worked for me. And now I realize just by you talking, my story growing up was deprivation. Save, 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 never enjoy. And very, very strong opinions about that. And no wonder why it didn't work, because then when I tried to take his personal finance advice, it was all about basically, oh, now you're an adult and you can spend money, but don't do any of it. Don't like you spent 7 years getting 2 degrees, but don't enjoy your life. You're in student loan debt. It did not resonate with me.
This particular person tweeted something 2 weeks ago that said, if you have debt, the only reason you should see the inside of a restaurant is if you're working in it. And to talk about the levels of privilege and disgust that goes into that comment. And this is why. And so this is we're now at a totally like why I do what I do. But like, this does not help people. You still get to enjoy your life. And so this is the money mindset stuff. And these are the big messages. We took it like, if you're struggling to sell in your business, you're struggling to grow your business, or you're feeling weird about, Monica, I'm sure you run into these entrepreneurs too, whose business kind of quickly grew to more than they've ever made before. And now they feel really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is because the loudest voices in the money space forever have been deprivation and shame and money is evil. And so we don't know how to handle it in a way. Like, I am a huge believer that wealth can improve our communities, right? That like we can give ourselves the power not only to be the type of parents that we want to be and live the type of lives we want to be, but also pour back into the things that matter to us in our lives and our communities. And so it can be a beautiful thing, but that's where a lot of those internalized messages come from. And doing a little bit of work on your money mindset will really help your business thrive.
So what I just realized, probably in the last 6 months, when I made a huge pivot, pretty much retired everything that I was doing, I realized I was disconnected from like the bigger reason. I had been pushing this, elusive hit $1 million in 1 year goal, and it seemed almost unattainable. Like I was chasing my tail. And I realized it was because of some self-reflection. I was disconnected from my overall purpose. It got to the point where I knew I could make lots of money for our family. I wasn't concerned about that. I, at this point, don't have any fears about my personal security, our family's personal security financially. And I realized that what I was missing was I started all of this because I was upset about how women were treated in corporate America. And I wanted to help more women realize that they can make money, not feel bad about it, and be the exact kind of mom they want to be, show up how they want to show up. It seems so obvious, but I was disconnected from it. And honestly, it gives me more joy to see another woman succeed in her business than it does to make another $1,000. I'm completely disconnected at this point from the more money in my bank account, the better I feel about it. It's more the impact overall that we're making.
I want to give you a really quick exercise that happens in our Thriving Mindset course. And this is just related to business goals. So often I hear entrepreneurs, I want to make 6 figures. I want to make 7 figures. I want to double my business this year. And they do feel disconnected from it. And they do get halfway through and they're like, like I'm close enough. Like this feels fine. Our exercise flips things on its head a little bit. And the first question I want you to ask is, how do you want to feel? Okay. Pick the 3 feelings in your day. Do you want to feel empowered? Do you want to feel impactful? Do you want to feel relaxed? Do you want to feel smart? What are your feeling words? Pick 3, your top ones. Then look at your values. What matters most to you in your life? Is it family? Is it environment? Is it whatever it is? Pick your values. And then I want you to make a list of what are the activities that bring those 3 feelings into your life and those values into your life, right? Make a list and start to identify what's your ideal day? What's your ideal month? What's your ideal year? How do you build your life around this? And then come to the number of how much do I need to make that a reality? For some people, it's way less than they think. For some, it's more, but figure out what that number is and make that your goal, because $1 million is so amorphous to so many of us. We don't know what it would do for us. It feels like a lot of money. It feels like we could do whatever we want, but what does it matter? Instead, start with, okay, what life am I creating? And then put a number to it. You want to have some number because it gives you a sense of progress and how you're going. But it's so much more meaningful, and you can start to build the pieces of it in early, because we see this in our community as well, of people saying like, okay, I have all these things. And yes, some of the things on my list that tie my feelings and my values are expensive and they're going to take some time, right? Like traveling around the world with my kids is valuable to me, but it's going to take me a while to get there. but some of them are small. Some of them are free, right? Like I value education and family are two of the things that matter to me. And closeness is like a feeling I want to feel close and connected. Sitting on the couch with my boys every day for 15 minutes, like I take a break from my work, I eat lunch with my boys, and I go read them books for a few minutes. They sit on my lap and I get that feeling of closeness. I'm educating them, like all the same things, even though money wasn't even involved. And so you can start to develop that life that you want. And then that desire for the money that gets you to the next stage is just way more powerful.
I think you already sold me on your membership, because I can see, like, I feel like I've made in the last year, especially with COVID, I feel like I made a lot of progress on my money mindset, but just so much of what you're saying, like I used to work way too much. I was working 60, 80-hour work weeks now. When I have a 4-hour day, and it happens more often than not, actually, sometimes I feel guilty about it. And I realized listening to you that all of this is wrapped up in some warped money mindset things I still have to work.
And a lot of people have that money mindset too, Monica, where making money is supposed to be hard.
Yes.
And if it's easy, you're doing something wrong or you're cheating. And so we make business way harder than it has to be to like prove that we've deserved the money that we're getting.
That was me for the first 4 years of the business. It really was. It makes me think I should have a whole episode on how I actually backed away from working as much as I did and all that stuff that went into it. But I know we went long. So please tell everyone how they can find you and join this membership, which sounds amazing.
Yeah, so I'm Smart Money Mamas, and Mamas is MAMAS. I know everybody spells it a little bit differently. And we are Smart Money Mamas on all social platforms. I spend way too much time on Instagram. Come tag me, DM me. I'm happy to talk about any of this stuff and be helpful. If you want to check out the society, you can go to smartmoneymamas.com/join, and you'll see all the things that are involved in the society. And we'd love to have you come hang out with us, do some of this work together.
I'm going to join. I can tell you you can come hang out with me too. So Chelsea, thank you so much for being here today. I know that our moms and women, I'm sure they've learned so much and feel like they're already making progress on their money mindset just listening to your few tips.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. Be sure to follow along with me on Instagram at Redefining Mom. As always, you can find all of the links and information mentioned in this episode at monicafroze.com/podcast. See you right here again next week.